welcome to Behind the Grind Show, an entrepreneur think tank where we sit down with entrepreneurs and high-performing individuals to talk about their journey. My name is Jimmy O'Donovan, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Tucker Massey.
Hello everyone. Behind the Grind Show is sponsored by Long Hollow Creatives, a boutique co-work and co-op studio space located at 700 North Gillimard Street. Today on the podcast, we have Stephanie Jones. Most of you know her as Mrs. Jones Cold Brew. She is the owner and founder of Mrs. Jones Cold Brew, which allows you to be your own barista by providing a coffee that you can make at home. As we go into the podcast, she will let you know that this is the side hustle that worked. And you can find Mrs. Jones Cold Brew at the Palafox Market, as well as Nomadics, which is a collaborative cafe and beverage lab with Big Jerk Soda and Mrs. Jones Cold Brew, partnered with Nomadic Eats food truck outside. How are you doing this morning, Stephanie?
I am great.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we had a lot of reach out, and
This is
for
an episode
having you
that's
on,
by
yeah.
popular demand.
That is
Absolutely.
crazy.
popular demand.
That makes me feel good.
Yeah, so how about you give the listener a little background on yourself and your voyage into the cold brew unknown.
That laugh says it all.
So, let's see. I grew up in Pensacola,
Okay.
and like everybody, you hit 20, whatever, and you think, I'm just going to get out of here because this is like, you know, I went to UWF and PJC when it was called PJC.
Yeah.
That was a long time
It
ago.
will always be PJC.
I know, right?
Right.
And then I was a paralegal for a long time, for
Really?
like 7 years, until I realized that I'm not meant to sit behind a desk all day because it drives me crazy. It feels like it sucks my soul out of me.
Yeah.
So there's something about, I think that entrepreneurial spirit was deep inside for a long time. So I always had some little side hustle going on. When I was in my mid-20s, it was Pampered Chef. I did that, did all kinds of things. I went back to school, took some culinary classes, and decided real quick I didn't want to be a chef either. It's kind of funny. And then I got married and moved away for about 7 years, and we came back to Pensacola and thought Pensacola got cool all of a sudden. We came back in 2014, I think it was.
Okay.
2014.
Not too long ago.
And by then I'd had 2 kids, 2 boys, and was hitting a wall of, my husband had a job that required him to be out of town all the time, traveling all the time, and so I was home with the kids a lot and slowly losing my mind. I really think I was about to, and so I was going into this little bit of depression.
Yeah.
And I needed something to do. I needed that side thing that I could do that was mine, that I could do alongside momming and
Yeah.
wifing and all those other things that I was doing. And so I made coffee, and I've always made coffee this way because I'm lazy. And making cold brew concentrate, you do it once, maybe every week or every week or two, and you've got this concentrate in the fridge, use a little bit of it, make your own drink, and you're out the door. And so having a coffee pot taking up space in my tiny, tiny kitchen was not an option. So that's kind of how I got started doing that. My husband looked at me one day and said, "You should just sell that." Because I have a background in sales. And he said, "You should just sell that." I said, "Okay, watch me."
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how that got started. And the cold brew was just kind of a natural thing that we did in our house, and I couldn't understand why more people didn't enjoy the convenience of a cold brew concentrate in the house. So there it is.
And here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of a long way to get there, sorry.
No.
No, that was perfect. So what were your first thoughts when your husband said, "Hey, you should start selling this"? Were you like, heck yeah, let's just go all in? Or was there a little sureness?
There was definitely some
That's a word.
Uncertainties?
uncertainties. I like that one.
Uncertainties.
Yeah. There was, a, there was a little bit of that. I think I wanted to know that he was going to be supportive of me,
Mhm.
so I kind of shoved it back at him and said, okay, yeah, okay, would you set up a Facebook page for me? Would you set up a blah, blah, blah for me? And he picked out the bottles, and he, you know, he's put some skin in the game, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, we're on,
Just
we'll
to know
go.
that he was about it.
Yeah, because I knew that he would be gone a lot and still with his job, and I would still have to be, you know, doing this thing, and I didn't want to be in it by myself.
Being a mom.
Yeah. So,
So when everything got started, how old were the kids then?
then I think they were 4 and 6 maybe. They're
Okay.
8 and 10 now.
Okay.
Yeah. I got boys. I'm a boy mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in a house full of boys, and then
Yeah.
man.
Man.
One man, 2 boys.
Maybe 3 kids. Who knows?
No. Depends on the day.
Oh, there we go. What were some of the biggest mental hurdles you had to get over with the confidence, and did you have a background in, okay, I know how to start a business or anything like that?
No, absolutely not. I did not see myself as a business person.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I thought I'm not.
But you could sell though.
But I knew how to sell things. I had
Okay.
worked in the beauty supply industry.
Okay.
Right before I met my husband, I was working for a company that was a distributor for beauty supplies to salons. So
Mhm.
my job was, I was in and out of my car every day,
Yeah.
traveling to salons and selling beauty supplies. The
Who'd you
stuff
work
that
for?
they use, the professional products that
Yeah.
they use. And so I knew how to do that. And then when we moved to Atlanta, I was working in it was the weirdest thing. It was what did they call it? It was called Events and Adventures. It was a singles adventure club kind of thing where you could join, and then you knew that all of these events that they set up were for the people who were members of the club,
Yeah.
but they were all single. So there was this interview process and selling the memberships. So I did that for a while and really enjoyed that. But then we moved back to Pensacola for my husband's job, or back to Mobile actually for my husband's job. And so I had a background in sales. I kind of knew the psychology behind that. It was the business part and all the mystery behind all that made me just terrified,
Right.
to be honest.
Yeah.
My sister is an accountant.
Okay.
She's a CPA. My brother-in-law
That
is
helps.
an attorney. It does.
That helps.
But it's I think she got all of those genes, because I
Yeah.
don't speak that language. Like I'm much more into the emotion and the psychology of it instead of the
Numbers.
the numbers,
Yeah.
right? But the more I got into the business, I'm surprised. Like once I can look at the numbers and I can tell what's going on and make decisions based on that and
Yeah.
see where things are selling and where they're not. And so now I'm a totally different person and have a different concept of business and my position in it and my ability to do it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So-
Was the Palafox Market the first place that you started selling?
No, that was like this huge achievement to get into Palafox Market. There's a
Really?
waiting list of a mile long of people who want to get into Palafox.
Really?
And so that was a
Background check
big deal, kinda. They want to make
I
sure
know
you have
that.
all your licensing in place
Okay.
and all that stuff, but
What was the
no.
first place you sold?
The first,
Were you
Well,
selling
we
like
did
cold brew
family,
out of your
friends.
trunk?
oh yes,
That's
oh
awesome.
yes. We did family and friends first, and then I'd set up anywhere anybody would let me.
Yeah.
So that was, I think one of the first ones was yard sale, put on a fundraiser yard sale for A21, which was human trafficking awareness. And yeah, and then I realized yard sales are not my people because they don't want to spend.
I was about to
that
say,
money.
you just took like lemonade stands to like the next level.
Right, and it didn't work. I'm just putting that
Yeah.
out there. So, but it was fun and it got me exposure and I met lots of people. And that's how I looked at every single place I could set up. So I did a farmer's market in Pace for a little while.
Okay.
I would put it on Facebook and I gave it away just for a review, just to like get somebody to tell me what they thought.
Yeah.
I would show up at their work and bring a bottle and make a cup in front of them and say, enjoy this and let me know what you think. So I did anything I could to just get out there and be recognized. And now people say, oh, I see you everywhere. Like, yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of free product in the beginning.
There was a lot.
Yeah.
We gave away a lot of coffee. But it was an idea that, and this is what we're still dealing with, is the idea of a coffee concentrate is still a little foreign to people.
What
they
is
wanna
a coffee concentrate? Because I have no idea.
Well, let me tell you.
Tell me.
So, what we make is a cold brew concentrate. We cold brew the coffee by immersing the grounds in water for 24 hours.
Okay.
And the difference between that and a hot coffee, obviously hot coffee is made hot and fast. Cold brew is made cold and slow. And when you do that, you're gently extracting the coffee from the grounds. And so what comes out of that, what the yield is a very low acid, not bitter cup of coffee. And depending on how much water to coffee ratio you do, the more concentrated it will be. I like to make mine super concentrated so that I can do more things with it. I can just use a shot of concentrate and then like 4 shots of water or milk. So that way you can have a lot of milk, make it really super creamy but still have a lot of coffee flavor, versus some of the ones that are on the shelf are already watered down.
Right.
And by the time you add the milk, it's not super creamy,
Right.
So we also make desserts with it. I've added it to muffin mixes. I've put it in my protein shake. There's so many things you can do with that concentrate. Cocktails, mocktails, anything. So that's the coffee concentrate. So we had to educate people on what it was and how to use it. And that's pretty much, by the time we got into Palafox Market, that's what that was for. So we started making drinks for people. And then while we're making the drink, we're saying, so this is how our concentrate works, And they watch it being made, and we made it with their favorite ingredients. In our bottles, there's no sugar, there's no dairy, there's no preservatives. It's just locally roasted coffee. That when I pick up the coffee, my car smells fabulous. So it's the freshest cold brew that you'll have. Not only is it cold brew, which is great, but also it's really super fresh. So there's that craft kind of concept behind that. And then you do with it what you want. If you can't have dairy, you just add almond milk or oat milk or whatever you like, and put whipped cream on it. Make it fancy. I don't sprinkles. Whatever you want.
Get a little bougie with it.
Yes.
Little do you know, Tucker's salivating right now.
So
thinking about it.
So this question comes from my inner coffee snob.
Oh gosh.
So I've started to become a coffee connoisseur, I guess you could say. Explain the process behind, not necessarily interviewing, but finding a local, I don't know if you do local coffee beans or you get coffee beans from out of the States, but like finding the perfect coffee bean, and where is that?
Okay.
Like Guatemala? Is it in Mexico? Costa Rica? I want to know. Because I've done a little researching on coffee.
Yeah?
It's bad.
So,
it's bad.
in my experience, my background is not a coffee.
Yeah.
So when I started, I was using whatever was BOGO at Publix, because I'm a mom and I watch
I
the
used to-
sales.
Right.
I do the same thing.
And it never tasted really great. And I was
Yeah.
like, huh? And so we tried a couple of local shops,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a roaster from a friend of a friend of a friend told me about. And he does 9 pounds at a time, so it's small batches. He goes to New Orleans, buys directly off the boats, like buys from wherever they're coming from. Personally, for our cold brew, we haven't branched out much now that we're in nomadics, now that we have a little more space, and I might have a little more breathing room to experiment. I would probably branch out. Currently, what we do is a New Orleans style chicory laden light roast.
Gotcha.
Okay, mostly South American, Central America. What that gives you, I think, is a nice chocolatey kind of flavor in the coffee. The chicory adds a little punch to it that I think sometimes is lost a little bit in cold brew. Sometimes when you cold brew, some coffee doesn't taste good cold brewed. Some taste great in cold brewed. So, and a lot of that is the person's taste.
Yeah.
You know, if I am not a big fan, and that maybe that's just me, maybe that's my palate, but I'm not a big fan of African coffees.
Yeah.
A little more too lemony, too citrusy for me. I like that chocolate kind of punch.
Yeah.
From like a Colombian
Mhm.
type. But we do our everyday blend, which is the New Orleans style with chicory. We use a light roast, which A, has more caffeine, and B, makes really stinking good cold brew, okay? We also do what we call our Thunderbolt extra caffeine. That's a mix of Robusta and Arabica beans,
Okay.
and then that way you get even more caffeine, and it's also a light roast. It's a tricky one. I call it the sneaky punch in the face of caffeine.
Sneaky punch in the face.
Seriously, because you will drink it and it's so smooth and it'll just go down so easy, you'll be tempted to add an extra shot, but holy cow, you'll get a lot done. You'll
Yeah.
clean the whole house. You'll, I don't know, get all your work done.
Sounds like the coffee that I need.
So I'm not a coffee snob.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the things you're talking about, what kind of intimidated me at the beginning of the business, and that was one of them, because that's not me. I'm just like, if it tastes good, great. And I don't want to demean my abilities in my business, but I know I'm figuring out what people like, and I'm going with that, and we will.
But that's good. That's
Yeah.
how you run a business.
Yeah. But we will, I'm sure, branch out with some more things in the future now that we have the ability to.
A little wiggle room. What
Yeah.
were some of the first failures you had with Mrs. Jones Cold Brew?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. Sensing a trend every time I listen to your podcast.
You're catching on. Like maybe getting the bottles?
Well, we have had times, not too in the distant past, we ran out of bottles and they were on back order. So for like 3 weeks, I couldn't get my bottles. So we were using some backup Bobo bottles, as I called them.
BBB.
Yeah, it was bad. But that kind of stuff just taught me I need to keep a little back stock. I've also had them send me the wrong bottles, and then you open things when they arrive to make sure they're the right thing now. So that just little things like that. I don't think I look at failure totally differently nowadays, and I think that's why you asked that question.
Maybe.
Yes, because it's a learning curve. I think when I first started, I would make notes. I had a little book. I would make notes of all the events I went to, like how much we sold, who we met, what kind of connections we made, whether or not it was a good thing or a bad thing, like what my gut feeling was, because I knew I would forget that later.
Yeah.
So I just made those notes and just trying to hone in on where our target customer was. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Who were some of the few people in the very beginning that you leaned on? You mentioned your sister being a CPA to kind of help brainstorm, or you reach out to as like a mentor.
My husband a lot was one of the ones that, we would sit and talk about it, where we were going to go with it, what we were going to do. He's a big picture kind of guy, so he wants to talk about
Where
we're
you
gonna
be
sell,
at in 10 years.
yeah, we're gonna sell this brand of Coke for $1 million, and I'm like, okay, let's dial it in to like what we got going on this week. But in the beginning, I was trying really hard to just learn as much as I could about what I was doing, because I felt like I didn't know anything about starting a business. So I looked to the SBDC and found my consultant, who is Glenn McDuffie.
Okay.
I ended up taking a bunch of little workshops that they did, but then I took this 9-10 month course that he does called, I think it's the next level or level something. He changed the name of it. It was a small business management class.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know SBDC, there's an office downtown based out of UWF.
Yes, it is the Small Business Development Center, and they do totally free counseling.
Yeah.
So I still see Glenn every single month.
That's awesome.
And we meet, and he holds me accountable for what I said I was going to do. He has a little list.
And when was the first time you and him met?
I was probably at least a year in.
Okay.
But I had taken, like the how to do QuickBooks class and the workshop on social media and, little things that they offered, and that really helped me. And then I think it was just meeting with other people at markets, fellow entrepreneurs and business people. So, yeah.
Awesome. So a little bit more of a personal question. You mentioned your husband being one of the biggest people you reached out to, you kind of leaned on. What's some advice for maybe that person who is a spouse to somebody who's going for their goal or trying to transition from that side hustle to their main job? What's that one? A couple pieces of advice to be able to, how can they be there for that person,
Good question, Jimmy.
Yes.
That's a hard one.
It is, because it's, Billy and I have been together since, oh my gosh, we've been almost married 14 years.
Okay.
So, and then we dated a few years before that. So, oh gosh, be willing to listen.
Okay.
And hash things out. Don't necessarily tell me what to do. This is where things got tricky for us. But he doesn't want to be told what to do either. So it's kind of a, now that we are working together more, there's all this mental stuff behind how to work together as a husband wife, but also how to try to work on the business without letting the business run you. And so we're still struggling with that. I guess my advice is to set boundaries around it. So like there's times when he looks at me and says, I'm not talking about business anymore.
Yeah.
And so I have to say, yes, okay, sure. Because I would talk about it all the time. I live, breathe, sleep, dream about this business. And I remember kind of like the day that happened, it was like all of a sudden I'm like having ideas and I want to write them down and he's still, he wasn't there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's just be patient.
Yeah.
Just try to be patient.
That's a hard subject for sure.
Yeah.
Especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, if with husband, spouse, whatever.
It's tricky, and it's been tricky too, trying to, especially in the last 6 months or so when things have kind of just ramped up for us, that we have had to look at things differently and really, because I would looked at it as kind of a, this is just a season of sacrifice. I'm not going to see my friends. I'm not going to see my family much. I'm not going to, my boys, God love them, they want to give me hugs all the time. Mommy, are you okay? I want to give you a hug. You need a hug. I'm like, yes, I do. But I also need to sit on the couch in silence and leave me alone for about 5 minutes because I'm stressed.
Yeah.
But I looked at it as kind of a season, like this is a means to an end. This is kind of, we're still kind of in the middle of that though, but I can see the horizon. I can see
light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think the sacrifice and the working hard and the lack of sleep is starting to, I can really see it starting to pay off for us.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you openly accepted into the Pensacola coffee community?
No.
Was there like
no?
Is there like
I don't think so. I don't know.
Is there like a Pensacola coffee gang?
I don't know. It's not. We've talked about this, my husband and I, a lot lately because you see the beer breweries kind of popping up and they're all friends and that kind of stuff. I don't think it quite works the same in the coffee business.
Really?
I think coffee shops saw me as a threat, or not a threat. That's really a dramatic sort of word. No, but more as like a competition because I'm trying to encourage people to use our product at home and stay out of the coffee shop. Because for me, when I was first starting the business, I thought, how much do they want for that coffee at Starbucks?
Right,
like,
you had
what?
2 boys, you didn't have time.
Right, I don't have time to go to the drive-through for something with them in the back seat asking for something when I just want a coffee for myself.
Right.
And then how much it cost. I thought I could do this at home. So the coffee industry for my particular product, it's a different circle, I think. But we formed kind of a tribe of friends, when we met the Big Jerks and met Randy with Nomadics. It's like, you're all trying to hustle and serve people well with a good product. So I've found my people, they're just not necessarily coffee people. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see there being a underground coffee.
I'm a rebel.
Yeah. Ooh. You hear that, Jimmy? That's a little Star Wars for you.
Was that Spock?
All right.
Lost him.
What's one piece of advice you give someone who's interested in going all in on their side hustle, their idea, or turn their side hustle into their actual form of revenue?
My advice would be to meet with as many people as you can talk to who do the same thing, or not same thing, but are in that, have done that type of transition. I'm always meeting people who want to talk to me about my business, which is such a weird kind of concept because I thought, you want to talk to me? Really?
Right.
That's how I feel about people asking about the podcast. Like, I don't know anything about podcasting.
Right. Like all of a sudden you're an expert. But when you've lived and breathed it, been there, done that, and lived to tell the tale, I think people do find a lot of appreciation and respect for that.
Yeah.
So I think seek out people that you can just sit down and talk to and pick their brain. And also really, really, really flesh out if you have a good product or not. Because you can invest a whole bunch of time in something that people don't really want necessarily, or not enough that you can make enough money off of to live. So I mean, there's the number part of trying to live off of it, which I'm still not, not quite there yet.
Yeah.
We're still hustling, trying to make ends meet and trying to sell a bunch of coffee.
Yeah.
But you have to be, I think, too, somebody who wants to get into a business or take a side hustle to the next level, it's not only figuring out if you have a good product, it's also admitting your shortcomings. Okay, I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at, and how can I find people to help me with the things that I'm not good at. And that's where SBDC came in for me, was just trying to kind of help me figure that out.
Yeah.
Like what are my strengths in this business? Mine's selling, being out there, like coming up with the ideas of the products and the flavors and that sort of thing. The creative kind of parts. And then I've found people to kind of do all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So.
AKA the Jimmys of the world.
Yeah.
The
I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Jimmy.
What would be one thing you could go back and tell your younger self? One piece of advice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I started this late. I had my kids when I was in my mid-30s.
Okay.
So I felt like I was kind of behind the ball. And so starting a new career, if you will, was kind of a big deal to me and scary to me. If I could go back, I would tell myself to quit worrying about crap. Just go, don't worry about screwing up. Don't be afraid to fail. Get over yourself and just go do it. So, because I think I was too worried about not doing things well enough.
Yeah.
When I was younger.
I can see that. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. What's up? Oh, go ahead. You got it?
A little bit more, a question I can relate to, as I have an 8-year-old as well, and he's always asking, who'd you guys talk to on the podcast, or what'd you talk about, things like that. How involved, or is there any interest that the boys have in, wanting to help in the shop, or, especially when you were making it at the house?
Are they addicted to coffee?
They think that decaf is the coolest thing in the world.
Yes.
Really?
Well, my oldest does. And he's the first one to wear his Mrs. Jones t-shirt to school.
Oh
That's
man,
awesome.
that's gotta be a great
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, we've gone
Free
and
branding.
set up a little coffee cart and taken around the coffee cart to the teachers, giving away cold brew drinks.
That's
Teachers
awesome.
are like,
You're winning
Yay!
brownie points for the
Yeah.
teachers.
so that's the boys have, and I don't know if y'all saw my pictures from Halloween. My friend made them costumes to look like Mrs. Jones bottles.
I did see that.
And they
That's
wore them.
great.
I couldn't believe they wore them. Everybody thought I was behind that, but it was actually my friend, Jelaine. She's so sweet. She made them those costumes, and they were running around at Palafox Market wearing those and trick-or-treating.
Awesome.
I still get a laugh out of it. But I'm working on trying to make them want to work harder.
Yeah.
So now they keep asking me, am I going to get paid for this? Like, how much are you going to,
Yeah. Tables turn.
Yeah. So, we'll see.
So your Instagram layout is amazing. The pictures that you have on, how professional they are. Explain to the listener, how important is Instagram and social media, like just organic posts out there? Like, how important is that to you and to the business?
So, social media is how my business really started. It was the only way that I had to get outside my circle. And I started with Facebook, and then I took the social media class thing, little workshop thing at SBDC. And my eyes were open to Instagram. Let me just tell you, I thought, nah, whatever. It's like it's pretty pictures, whatever. But then I started seeing there's an entirely different demographic, an entirely different subset of customers that I could reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started doing Instagram, things exponentially changed for us. I had a sister duo, Ivana and Sophia, who took photos for me, and Ivana still takes photos for me. So those, I cannot take credit for all those fancy pictures because that's her.
They're pretty fancy.
She's super, super fancy and talented. She is living in Portland now. So everything is me sending her messages saying, okay, this is what I'm doing this week, and can you kind of approximate that? And so from across the country, we can get some pretty decent content. So it's also mixed with things that we take, that I take, or I'm trying to just get inspired. But social media is everything for us. It really is our only form of advertising and our way of connecting to our audience.
So a lot of self-taught marketing.
Oh yes, oh yes. I'm self-taught everything.
Yes.
That's awesome. Did you start out with just, organic reach, or did you do some paid advertising at the beginning?
Paid for advertising one time to the tune of maybe $5 and I just felt like it didn't really work, and I didn't understand the process enough. Okay. It was just this rabbit hole I didn't want to go down. Yeah. I didn't have time to deal with figuring it out. I figured out a bunch of different things with my business, but that was one, this whole Facebook marketing, whatever. Just, no.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and show my face everywhere that I possibly can in person. I think that human connection means a lot. There's only so much of that one person can do. I understand that. But no, I was just going to let it do what it was going to do. And then I also knew that if I got people that way, then they were people who really like our brand. Yeah. It's not just some list that of followers that we got from something. Right. I don't even know how you do that, but I hear people do it.
Right.
Your meme game was pretty strong. I don't know if it's
back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
That was me. That was before I got professional people.
Yeah, because we're looking like, how does Moses make coffee?
He brews
it.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's awesome. Where do you see Mrs. Jones' Cold Brew in 5 years? You're in Nomadics now. That's nice and fresh, brand new. Do you see yourself with your own location?
I would love to have that. I think my vision of a location for us was something kind of like, do you remember the little tiny drive-through where there was no indoor seating, where it was just like little kiosk type thing with a walk-up window? I don't want to say like a Checkers, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Something like Tops has.
Yes, kind of just a walk-up. It's kind of what I had envisioned from the beginning, but more in an urban, like downtown kind of thing. I would love to have found just a little doorway I could use to provide our coffee. But the nomadic situation has been great. It's really been great.
So awesome inside.
Yeah, we've been able to have coffee on tap, which we've never been able to do because we were always mobile. Yeah. So now that we have a place where we can actually plug things in, we can have
I love the excitement in your face.
Yes,
we can outlets.
I'm just so excited too of all the different things I can experiment with and flavors and different things we can do. So we have our regular everyday blend on tap, and I have heard in the last, I don't know how many days, this is the best nitro I've had from so many people, which makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But we also have king cake on tap right now. king cake flavored
Excuse me,
nitro.
what?
Oh,
And we have
What was
red velvet cake nitro.
The king
On
cake.
tap. Yeah.
Is that really sweet or?
No,
Yeah.
it's got a little sugar in it, but it's a buttery vanilla cinnamon nitro coffee.
I may have to go there
Yes,
after this.
please.
Yeah.
Yes. So the ability to have different kinds of nitro has been a lot of fun, but I don't remember your original question. Now it's like out of my brain.
5-year goal.
Oh, 5-year goal.
Or where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So I think we want to revamp our product line. We'd like to get some more distribution in grocery stores and that sort of thing. As far as the retail portion, maybe not 5 years, but maybe 10 years. It'd be fun to have a cold brew brewery, like
Oh,
kind of perfect plainish, but with coffee.
all right.
I've
Saturday, February 15th.
Mark it
2000
down.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you know what would be really cool is I've actually I don't want to say I've had this idea, but I've had this idea like, could you sublease out a brewery and when they're not open, have your own coffee taps in there and be like a brewery /
Brewery at night, coffee in the morning.
yeah.
I've heard of this. There's a couple of places I've heard of in Texas
That's what we need.
that have like cocktails in the back and coffee in the front, and then
Sort of
it's
like
kind
a
of
mullet.
yeah. Yes, and but parts of the day I think both are open,
Okay.
so that's kind of a cool idea.
Mm.
I like that.
Mm.
I mean, this whole shared
brain's going
space
right now.
thing is what we're doing now. It's like a entrepreneurial roommate situation.
Yeah.
It's like where we're in right now. We're in
Yeah.
a co-work space. I think that's
Yeah,
it's growing
except for food.
rapidly. Yeah.
and I think there needs to be more of that in Pensacola. To all of you listening, we need a co-work,
There's
more of a co-work
There's something.
kitchen,
Mm.
Yeah.
like a incubator kitchen.
Mm-hmm. There's something big coming
Oh,
in the future.
Yes.
Good,
Yes, yes,
good.
yes.
See, I knew y'all were in the know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hence the reason we started Behind the Grind Show. Let's wrap it up. What's one piece of content or book, podcast, something that you're consuming that's providing you tremendous value?
So, I love to listen to podcasts.
Mm.
Lately, I've been listening to How I Built This,
Yes.
Guy Raz.
That's a very good one.
I just listened to the episode that he did with the edible arrangements guy.
Okay.
Totally interesting about the concept of fruit on sticks and how, as an arrangement. But what I thought was really interesting about that was he said that nobody would give him any money, nobody would give him any backing,
Yeah.
and he just kept at it anyway.
Yeah.
So those are kinds of things that really inspire me, especially when I realize, when I think about how hard I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
Any books by Mike Michalowicz?
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know Mike.
Profit First, The Pumpkin Plan, Clockwork. I'm all about it.
Surge was one of my
I
favorites.
haven't
Have you
read
read that one?
No, I haven't read that one.
And there's also a book that I've been not listening to. I do listen to most books because I just have zero time and energy to read.
Yeah.
So I do most of my stuff with audio in my car. My kids don't like to listen to that. But when they're not in the car, I can listen to stuff. Surge was really good to listen to. Have you ever listened to Mike Michalowicz
I haven't.
on audio? Oh my
No.
gosh, he's so funny. He's hilarious. And so some of those entrepreneurial books are so boring.
Yeah.
And he's totally interesting and funny to listen to. Very, very dad joke-ish.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Also there's a book called Grind. I've put it on my Instagram. The man who started Big B Coffee.
Okay.
It's not a big brand anywhere around here, but anyway, he's talking about the different things that he learned as he started out from the bottom and went to CEO of that company.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for taking your time this morning. As maybe we didn't say while we were recording, but your husband is at the market.
He is working hard,
Yes.
slinging
Yeah.
the cold brew right now.
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us.
He's also flirting for tips, so if you see him,
Hit him up.
yeah, tip him good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your time.